Hello again everyone, and welcome back to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage YouTube channel. So I have been pondering what might have caused the broken, snapped off needle that this poor machine was left with and had when I received it to rescue. Now, I have mentioned in the past that there are many things that can cause a sewing machine needle to break. Sometimes it's just being asked to do more than it was designed to do. You know, you can only get so many layers of fabric through a home sewing machine. In spite of how strong and tough they are, every machine has limits. And, you know, even if you use a jeans needle, which is a little heavier duty needle, a little bit thicker in its construction, those also can break if pushed to the limit. And I mentioned to you all, one of my theories, I think I mentioned this in an earlier video, is that if any part of the bobbin case or the hook, if any of these parts, or the race cover, the shuttle race cover, if any of these parts are not installed properly, maybe they're a little off in alignment, for some reason something came loose, and when your needle goes down, as you see here, I have the new needle installed, you can have a needle break. Different things can cause it. But there's one other thing, and it occurred to me. Okay, so take a look at these two accessories. These are two presser feet right here. And I'm going to lower the camera because I'm going to zoom in on these. When I got this machine, strangely, or maybe not so strangely, it did not have a zigzag foot. Now, all sorts of accessories with vintage machines, all sorts of odd things happen. They get gone, they get lost. Sometimes people get new accessories that don't fit the machine. Machines lead strange lives over the decades. Well, normally, the most common thing you see on a sewing machine that can sew a zigzag stitch is you see some form of foot that can handle zigzag, or maybe it's a satin stitch foot. But normally you have this, let me zoom in here for you, right? You're going to have that space, right? So when the needle is hopping, let's hold it in this direction. When the needle is hopping back and forth, it can go side to side. You see that nice wide oval space. That's the most common thing that you will see. Sometimes you just get a machine and it doesn't have any attachment. These are all low shank, they're not hard to find. So I would never pass on a machine because it was missing a sewing foot. Maybe it came loose and someone had it and didn't know what it was. Sewing machines often they find themselves in the hands of people who don't sew and don't know anything about them. But thankfully they've held on to it long enough to hopefully get it in your hands or my hands. Now, this is what I believe happened after giving you all those theories of what could have caused a needle to break, because they are all possible and even maybe more common. The culprit is sitting right here. I noticed when I got this machine that the needle was broken. There was no foot on the presser bar, so you didn't see it. You know, it basically, let me zoom back over here. It looked just like this, only the needle was, you know, there was half a needle shaft and there was no foot, right? There should be some sort of sewing foot on your presser bar. There was none. But what was in the side compartment, along with a few other bits, was this. And what is this? Those of you who sew will of course know. This is a straight stitch sewing foot. Now, if you have a sewing machine that only sews a straight stitch, you have other types of accessories you can use, but your needle only goes up and down. It never moves sideways. And so this foot should work, right? It's a very common thing. You'll see it on a lot of the classic sewing machines that were straight stitch only. Well, let's put this, look at this machine, look at this foot in the light, everyone. The evidence is right there. If you look closely, let's zoom in even a little bit more. Take a very close look, and what do you see? This foot is not worn. It doesn't have a lot of wear on it. It's shiny everywhere else. But look right here. You see these? These when I touch them with my finger, they're rough. someone made the mistake of putting this foot on, or it could have been someone who didn't know any better and said, "Hey, I'm going to sew something." Or maybe they couldn't find a zigzag foot and they didn't even know what zigzag was, and they tried it, and the machine was set to zigzag. And if you have a straight stitch foot, well, your zigzag can't move in a sideways direction, and that needle came down on both sides of the straight stitch foot, right? Look at that. And the foot is still usable. This foot is fairly thick steel, and it's fine. In fact, you could still use it today. Unfortunately, that is what I believe broke the needle. Now, why does this happen? Here's again what you should be using, or some variation of that. Now, some of you may be used to, when you have a zigzag capable machine, you simply sew both straight and zigzag. Typically, when zigzag machines became more commonplace, you could sew all sorts of stitches, including straight stitch, with a zigzag foot, because clearly the needle will it will go up and down, right? It'll just do it right in the center of this opening, or in the center of a straight stitch foot. Okay, so you can straight stitch with a zigzag foot, but you cannot zigzag with a straight stitch foot. Now, the manual should tell you this, right? But people don't always have a manual, and if they have one, they don't always read one, or read the one they have. So, thankfully, this foot is still more than capable of being used. And this really highlights something else, which is that there's something that it can happen to all of us, okay? We are used to, in the year 2025, having lots of things that are automated. Now, when this machine was sold in the early 60s, people said, "Wow, look at the automation. You have zigzag. You don't have to, you don't have to manually sew the raw edges of your fabric, and you can sew zigzag seams and all these different wonderful things." Not to mention the stitch cams, right? So for decorative stitching, oh, it's automatic. Well, remember, this is the analog era. This machine has no electronics in it. It doesn't even have transistors like some of the Neckies would have. It is purely electromechanical, and all of the thinking has to be done by the user. So let me give you an example. I have two vehicles. We have two vehicles in our household. One of them is very new, and it has lots of computers. I didn't really ask for all of them, but sometimes they come with the car, and that's the way it is, like it or not. The other car is older. It's almost a vintage car. I take good care of it, and I tinker with it, and it's beautifully preserved, like I like to do with my sewing machines. That car is more of a summer luxury fun thing to have. That car has much less tech. In fact, the only tech it has is it has a tiny computer. It has a car computer, but it just manages the engine air fuel mixture. It will lower the AC when you're going uphill or something. And that's pretty much, and it has a lot to do with pollution control, but that is pretty much all it does. Everything else has to be done by the driver. So I typically am driving, I'll often drive the newer vehicle, and the newer vehicle, when it goes into reverse, and many of you will know this if you have newer vehicles, it has a camera in the back, and it has all of these different alerts. They're mostly passive on this car, so that if you're going to turn to the left, it pulls up a camera and it alerts you if a car is too close. Well, the other week I was getting into the older car, and I hadn't driven it in a while. I'd been driving the new vehicle, and lo and behold, I had to remember, oh yes, you've got to turn around, turn your head and look backwards, use the mirrors and look back to go in reverse, because there is no camera on this car. The reason I mention all of this to you is to remind you that when you have a vintage machine, especially for quite a few of you who also own newer machines, and you have many good reasons, and I've had many sewers tell me why they like to have new machines for certain types of sewing, but they also like to have vintage machines because of the wonderful power and reliability they have. But here's the analogy. If you sew on a new machine and you get very used to it, it's going to beep at you. It's got software. It's somewhat intelligent, certainly compared to this 1961, 62-ish white brand sewing machine. And if you use your new modern machine for a while, and then you go to, oh, I've got something heavy. I'm going to go to my vintage machine. And the last time you used your vintage machine, you had a straight stitch foot for whatever reason. And yes, it will work. You can put the straight stitch foot on here. It'll work fine as long as you are in straight stitch, right? So what does that mean, right? Right now it's in full, what is it now? Let's see what we've got here. Trying to remember what I've got. Okay, right now, if I want to block this in, this machine currently at this moment is locked in straight stitch. It should only go up and down, and sure enough, it will not, make sure I don't get a thread nest in there, it will not go zigzag. And if I want to use a straight stitch foot, I can, and it will not be a problem at all. Now, why would you even use a straight stitch foot on a machine that has zigzag? You know that you can sew straight stitch with a zigzag foot, right? So what's the point? There are certain situations and the reason you could buy sometimes the manufacturer, I don't know if White did on this model year, but the manufacturer would include a set of feet. Oh, maybe you want a straight stitch foot. What for? Straight stitch feet still make sense even on a machine that is capable of zigzag and decorative stitches. Why? There are certain types of sewing situations where you don't want to use the zigzag foot. Most often it has to do with delicate fabrics, okay? So if you have a very, very sheer fabric, just very lightweight, very delicate, you will find that if you try to sew basically, if you try to sew a straight stitch, right, and you do it with very, very, very delicate, highlight the word delicate here, fabric, what you will discover is very often that fabric is so light in weight that when the needle, even if you're just in straight stitch, right, the needle is going to pull the fabric down. It may actually pull it through this opening where the needle will be going. It can even pull it down into the bobbin case area, and that can create all kinds of problems. So that is why people kept using, they didn't use it often, but they kept using the straight stitch foot because they might want to sew, oh, I don't know, a very lightweight silk or a handkerchief or a scarf or something. Who knows? People sew all kinds of things. And that's all well and fine. However, remember, this sewing machine is counting on you and your brilliant mind to be the software. So you have to remember that when you are done with that special project, to make sure you remove that straight stitch foot. Because if you don't, it's very possible, and it can be done. I've done it accidentally years ago when I was overhauling one of my early machines, and I didn't even pay attention. I was like, oh, let's test it. And I didn't look at the setting. And sure enough, that needle came up, it went over to the left, and it went wham, and it hit the foot. So if it's happened to you, I mean, it can happen to anyone. This video is really a reminder, not only about how needles get broken, but how to not break the needle and whack your machine in a way it doesn't really appreciate. You literally, whenever you decide to do something special, and by the way, not only will this apply to straight stitch feet, but it also applies to any number of accessories. Some accessories are obvious. You put a big buttonhole or attachment on this thing, it's kind of hard to ignore. But whenever you're doing something on your machine and you're getting ready, something special, something you don't do all the time, that should be a flashing yellow light to you to say, okay, I mean, tie a finger to your string. We're getting near Halloween. tie a string on your finger, whatever, or put a big piece of whatever you need to do as a clue, as a little prompt to help you remember that, oh, okay, I need to get my machine set back up for whatever your normal sewing is. And on this machine, it would probably be a combination of straight and zigzag. And most fabrics, if they're heavy enough, you can sew a straight stitch all day long with a zigzag foot or a zigzag stitch, and your fabric's not going to get sucked down into the foot. I was describing a situation to you that is less common today. You might sew silk or very sheer fabrics, but it's not commonly done. Occasionally people sew, I don't know, dance uniforms or costumes. Again, Halloween is coming up here when I'm making this video. So whenever you do something unusual with your machine and you change the setting, just remember, you've got to remember to change it back, or you will have a very rude and loud, boisterous awakening when your needle goes whack, and chances are your needle will splinter, and you don't want that, and you don't want to hurt your feet on your machine. Back in the day, previous generations of our ancestors, they had to remember more things than we do today, just like I had to remember to look in the mirror and look behind, turn my head to back up my vintage car, because my brand new car has automated some of these responsibilities. And this is true in sewing machines. It's true in just about everything that we consumers use. So a helpful hint to happiness, as one of my professors once described, little things like this. It could save you a broken needle, a little bit of being startled, and it'll help protect the machine and help protect you. I sure hope this was helpful, and I really, really am grateful to all of you who support this channel. Please remember to subscribe if you have not done so. There is no cost to do so. And we will see all of you in the next video.